I was going to return the Hanukkah sweater so I could get my $28 back, but I thought that that was too Jewish. Hey humans, I'm Montell, and this is The Dirty Word, where sex and language get it on. Today we're going to be talking about Jews! I have two just divine Jewesses with me today. Despite what you might infer from my hair color, I too am a Jew.
I'm Keely. My Twitter handle is, my name is Keely, K-E-E-L-Y.
I'm Racheli, as you can tell by my name. I'm Jewish, got that Flemish in there. I actually have a YouTube channel where I video blog about how to overcome adversity with positivity through my adventure with having cancer.
Racheli goes to a really cool synagogue.
Ikar in LA, shout out.
Apparently they drink a lot.
Don't they all?
Yes.
All Jews drink, that's a stereotype.
Beautiful segue. Today, just in time for the Jewish holidays. Oh yes, I have my sweater here. Let me turn it on.
Why not really?
Fancy.
I brought these two delightful guests here today because I wanted to talk about stereotypes of Jewish women. I grew up in a community in Baltimore, Maryland that was super Jewish. Like, my elementary school was something like 80-90% Jewish. Growing up, I was aware of Jewish stereotypes, but I never found them offensive because like everybody was Jewish. And I intellectually knew that there weren't that many Jews worldwide, but I just thought, my community is great. These stereotypes are just funny. Nobody finds them offensive and nobody uses them abusively because everyone knows that Jews are the best. Obviously, in recent months, it has come out that all along there have been these very small but very passionate and vocal communities of people who really believe these stereotypes and are afraid of Jewish people and wish that they wouldn't exist in America. So that's kind of caused me to want to like take a step back and look at some of these stereotypes and figure out where they come from.
I grew up Orthodox. I lived in a very Orthodox community. And then I also lived in Israel. So I got to experience kind of both sides of the spectrum. I experienced my first form of anti-Semitism when I actually lived in Maryland. Anti-Semitism was something that I was super aware of.
I just totally thought it was a thing of the past. We would say like, oh, that's so Jewy, and it was fine because we really genuinely thought that anti-Semitism was behind us.
I'm from Brooklyn. I said, and I thought I was original, and then I found out Lenny Bruce had said it first. If you're in New York, even if you're Catholic, you're Jewish. I didn't realize that Jews were such a minority, not just in our country, but worldwide until I was like in middle school.
Today we're going to talk about two main Jewish stereotypes that we grew up with, and they are, first, the overbearing, nagging Jewish mother/wife stereotype.
Not that we grew up with an overbearing
Jewish
nagging mother.
Well, speak for yourself. Speak for yourself.
And the other one is the Jewish American princess, the Jap, which I was just explaining that now that I'm not surrounded by so many Jews, when I say Jap, some people think that I'm using a slur for like Japanese people. Like you were saying, it's like, no, it's a slur for Jews that I'm allowed to use. Okay, so this is going to work a little bit like a quiz. I went and did some research to find out where these two stereotypes of Jewish women came from. So I'm gonna ask you two, like, where do you think they originated? Do you think there's some truth to them? Why do you think they exist? And then we'll dip into some of what the scholars have to say. I was gonna turn this into a drinking game where anytime anybody vehemently disagreed with someone or talked over them, we were gonna have to take a drink.
Because those are Jewish stereotypes. Why are we not doing
Why
that?
are we not doing that again?
We
You said you have
can.
champagne.
I have champagne. Should I open it?
I'm so down.
Hold on, we're gonna make this happen. Okay, ready?
Ready? I've never done it. I always make a slow do it because it's scary.
I want to say something about women interrupting other women though. This linguist named Jennifer Coates has established that it actually does not halt comprehension or halt the progression of a conversation, but it actually fosters it because it sort of acknowledges, I totally know what you're saying, and here's a little bit of what I have to say. Minimal responses like, yup, or like, or totally. I am confirming that I have heard you, and we're building on one another's sentiments and like moving the conversation forward. It's part of what she calls a jam session, like jazz. It's like, be-doo,
I love that.
Oh, I love that.
It's actually not a bad thing, but we're gonna drink to it anyway. The other thing that we were talking about earlier is that there was a scholarly article by a sociologist or a linguist named Gabriella Moden, and it was looking into Jewish women's argumentativeness and contrariness. And she observed that it is true that Jewish women will often oppose or argue with what the other person has said, but instead of that being a negative thing, it's actually a way that Jewish women build solidarity. It's kind of a signal that their relationship is so close and so solid that even the most vehement opposition can't rock it.
I feel like it's also Judaism as a whole, and women especially, we're kind of we are a family.
Yeah.
You know, we're brothers and sisters, we're a tribe. And if you think about your relationship with your siblings, if you have siblings, it's very much like that. Like, you'll argue till your heads turn red, but then you hug and you love each other unconditionally in the next moment. We experience that a lot as a Jewish people because of all the stuff that we've been through in the past. I think that it just brings us together, especially since there's so little of us.
Speaking of that familial aspect, I was reading before that levels of anti-Semitism in the United States throughout the decades have really fluctuated, and that has a lot to do with the political state of the country, who we're at war with, how the economy is doing. During World War I, the reputation of Jews among Americans was, oh, they're so philanthropic, they're so patriotic, and then just 20 years later, levels of anti-Semitism were skyrocketing. Yeah, the reputation went way down. As of the past 30 years, negative stereotypes have mostly replaced full-on anti-Semitism, at least for the average person. But at the same time, 79% of Americans believe that Jews put an emphasis on the importance of family life, even when there are so many of these other stereotypes, like Jews are greedy and miserly and Jewish women are oppressive, you know.
Jews control the media and, you know.
Totally. At least everybody still thinks that we value family. We've been interrupting so much. So bringing it back to the two stereotypes, where do you think that the oppressive Jewish mother stereotype comes from?
I think that there's a few other cultures as well that has the same sort of naggy Jewish mother.
Yeah.
First comes to mind Italian mothers.
Yep.
The Holy Trinity is in Brooklyn, it's Jews, Italians, and Irish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Drinking, you know, food, family. I think that it is a totally real stereotype per se.
Yes.
Sorry. I would like to draw a distinction between oppressive and overbearing.
Yeah.
I think that the overbearing mother thing is also a really big immigrant thing.
Yeah.
And I think that for certain communities in the US, a lot of that immigrant mentality still lingers.
You're exactly right. What you both said was exactly right. According to the observations that scholars have made, I was seeing that the overbearing mother stereotype originates from Eastern and Central European Jews who came over to the US from their shtetl communities. This was pre-World War II. It is a quality associated with being
Oppression.
an immigrant and being oppressed and wanting your children to overcome the adversity that you faced. At the same time, there are dozens of cultures that have the same stereotype. So more than the stereotype coming from an anti-Semitic place, it comes from a deeply gendered place. The other thing that has fortified the overbearing Jewish mother stereotype is the media. In the 20th century, the archetype of the overbearing Jewish mother was in so many TV shows, books, movies. They always had a Long Island accent, and that's why we picture Jewish mothers as having a Long Island accent. I mean, obviously, there are Jews in the Midwest, there are Jews in the South. Even though I'm not from Long Island, I picture them as having a Long Island accent because that's how they're portrayed in the media. So then the other stereotype is the Jewish American princess, aka the Jap. That girl who gets a nose job when they're 16.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah, that's such a big part of the stereotype in my brain.
Yeah.
It's your parents paying for your nose job.
Yeah.
Totally. This stereotype is characterized by a sexually repressive, self-centered, materialistic, lazy female. Wow, that's a really terrible way to be. There is definitely no male equivalent there's no Jewish American prince. It's only reprehensible when you are a Jewish girl.
In youth group, the term that we would use for the boys would be a nice Jewish boy.
A nice Jewish boy.
And so how that is in a positive way. I mean, when you think about it, Jap, Jewish American princess, that's a positive word or a positive phrase, but it's not used in a
Well,
it's
the word
used.
princess, sorry. The word princess is a word that has undergone pejoration,
Yes.
which is the phenomenon that I've talked about on this channel before, where a word that starts out as positive or neutral devolves over time to mean something negative, and it's something that happens to, nearly every word that has ever been to describe a woman in the English language. If you were to call someone a king, that would be a compliment. But to
Right.
call someone a princess is to call someone a spoiled brat.
Right.
You don't think that nice Jewish girl is also a...
From my experience, we never said nice Jewish girl like NJG. Like NJB. We had like songs about it. Like it was like
Okay.
a thing. NJB was a total thing, and Jap was a total thing.
So do you want to know?
But I really don't know.
You
So-
want to know where
Yeah.
it comes from? The term Jap started popularizing in the 70s. I didn't know it went back that far. I thought it was 90s.
Oh, I thought it went back further.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was more recent. It came up in the 70s and 80s, and it popularized in a lot of women's lifestyle magazines. There were articles in like Cosmo and stuff about this new thing, the like Jewish American princess, like the sexualization of the Jewish girl. And then like there were Jap jokes. Jews themselves
Like Sarah
loved it.
Silverman.
Sarah
Yeah.
Silverman. Some scholars theorize that the Jap stereotype resulted from pressures on the Jewish middle class to maintain a visibly affluent lifestyle as post-war affluence declined. So it was like you still wanted to seem like you had the best bat mitzvah. You still wanted to seem like the Jewish people are doing well.
Right.
And that was
That
important
makes sense.
to Jewish culture.
I went to a prep school in Brooklyn. Some of the bat mitzvahs that I saw,
Oh, yeah.
like one was we were bussed out to a country club, like
I babysat a
Sounds
girl
about
right.
in New York who went to Dalton, the Dalton school,
Ooh,
and she,
yeah.
like, one of her friends had Ed Sheeran at her.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you all so much for watching this episode of The Dirty Word, and thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Oy vey, it was so fun. And if you have any cultural stereotypes, whether they're Jewish or not, that you want to know the origins from, leave them in the comments below, and maybe I'll do a little research for you. I don't know. Yeah, thanks so much for watching, and remember, stay dirty.
Shalom.